In this video, you're going to learn about TCP communication and how to build a TCP server and client with the socket module in Python. Now, networking is a very important aspect of device-to-device communication over the internet. Learning how to use the socket module, which is built in the Python standard library, gives us a very practical skill to code all sorts of things. A network socket in this context is actually a process or a way by which we can make computers or devices talk to each other. Now, you can think of a socket as a building block for network tools in Python. And to get a deeper understanding of networking and Python programming for networking, I would recommend you further study the socket module from the Python official documentation, because it comes with numerous methods that give you plenty of freedom to build whatever tools you can think of. Now, aside of the socket module, there are many Python modules for networking, but I consider this one important since it allows us to work at a fairly low level. Alright, so our code today is going to be made of two parts. So we have a server and a client. The server is going to listen or wait for messages while the client is the one sending the messages. So we'll start by coding the server, and we'll import not server, but import socket, which is the module that we're using. Then we'll define the server address. So let's say host equals socket get host name. Okay, now this method connects to localhost. Then we'll specify a port number we want to listen on. So we'll say port equals 9337, just a random port number. Now notice the host is going to be a string, while the port in this case is an integer, and this is how the socket module wants us to specify the address details. Okay, and then what we'll do is to create a socket object. So let's say sock underscore equals socket dot socket, and we're going to use socket AF address family inet internet, and the type of socket is going to be socket sock underscore, so sock underscore stream. So this is for TCP communication. Two things, like I said here, AF underscore inet is the address family for IPv4, and sock underscore stream specifies that we're going for a TCP connection. And there's also sock underscore .dgram, which is for UDP, often faster and less reliable. Next, we bind the socket we've just created to the host and the port variables that we've just defined. So we do that with sock underscore .bind, and we're going to say host port. And as you can see, it's taken as a tuple. Now, we could be more flexible here by allowing the port and the host to be given in the command line, and in that case we'd be using the sys module, and maybe we'll do that in another more advanced class. Okay, so we've got the server defined. Now we need to actually have it listen for incoming connections. So we do that with sock underscore dot listen 1. 1 here denotes the backlog, or the number of unaccepted connections before the server starts refusing new connections. Now let's also have something printed to the output. So we'll say print on a new line server started ... and then we go to a new line. Then we need to start accepting connections using the .accept method. So we'll say con addr equals sock underscore dot accept, meaning that we accept connections from the client socket con and its address addr once connection is established. And then we'll do another print saying connection established with, and then let's say string ADDR. Then we'll send a message back to the client. So first, let's actually put this message into a variable. So we'll say message equals, on a new line, thank you for connecting, not connection, but connecting, space, and then plus string of ADDR. And then we're actually going to send this message with con.send. We send the message dot encode, so we need to specify the encoding because we're in Python 3. We'll encode it in ASCII and then close the socket. So con.close. Okay, so when we run the script, it's going to start listening for connections on port 9337, and whoever connects, it's going to send a message to, and then immediately close the socket. We could also run this in a while loop to listen continuously, but we'll not do that here. Alright, next we'll go to, but first let's actually save this, and then we'll go to the client and code the client side of it, which is relatively easier. So we start with importing the socket module and then create a socket. So sock underscore socket dot socket, exactly the same thing as previously. So socket dot af inet, okay, and the type of socket is going to be sock underscore stream. Then we can simply use the connect method to connect to the server without wasting time defining variables for the host and port like we did in the server.py. Again, like I said, you can code the script such as in a way that it receives these values via the command line. So anyway, in this case, we'll connect to the server using sock underscore dot connect. And we simply pass on socket dot get host name, okay, and then also the port 9337 as a tuple. So once connection is established, we want to be able to receive whatever message the server sends. So we define a variable message equals sock underscore dot recv, and how many bytes we want to receive, 1024. Once that's done, we'll close the socket with sock underscore dot close, and also print the message we got from the server with print msg dot decode, of course ASCII. Control S, and that's it. A very basic TCP client server coded in Python. Now let's actually put it to work. So I'm going to open up a command prompt and navigate to desktop where both the client and the server are located. And we'll start the server with python server.py. Says server started, and then open up another command prompt, put them side by side so that you can actually see how they work. So the server is listening, and I also have to navigate to the desktop here, and when I hit python client.py, you're going to see how it connects to the server, send the message, and we basically can see the communication between the two of them. So I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so we have a little error here, socket, so it's over here. So we have socket, control S, then we go back over here, and then do that one more time. And as you can see, the connection took place. So when the client connected, it said connection established with the IP, and then it sent the message, and it sent thank you for connecting. Awesome, right? So this was a pretty basic networking talk through the socket module. Of course, you can further expand these codes by, for example, allowing ongoing listen on the server side using loops, by receiving command line arguments, by executing commands on the server from the client, by messaging back and forth between the server and the client, like a basic chat application, for example, by encrypting the communication, and much, much more. So it's like I always say, The only limit is your imagination.